Hey everybody, welcome back. So just want to do a really quick video on the announcement of some new 4K titles that are coming from some of the independent labels, and it's looking like 4K is now really starting to kind of take hold. I don't think it's going to take off as quickly as Blu-ray did initially, especially since it is still a very expensive medium to produce for. As it stands now, it is ballpark around 3 times the cost to make a 4K release than it does a Blu-ray release. Just because a movie has a 4K master that, let's say, it was used for Blu-ray doesn't mean that they just take that master and throw it on a 4K disc. It's a completely different process that you have to go through if you're doing it properly in order to take full advantage of the format, because you really want to utilize the color and the bit depth as well as the clarity of 4K that you get with the format that you don't get on Blu-ray. And there is a lot more costs involved in that. But it's great to see that a lot of these independent companies are sort of jumping in and testing the waters. And now we have almost all of the main companies jumping into the game. Now it does get a little tricky because if I had to guess, a lot of these movies are a little bit hard to license if you are going to do a 4K release, because 4K, there's no region coding. Once a 4K one is released, anyone in the world can get it, so that sort of does away with the region coding, which can make some films a lot harder to license, especially if they're being licensed from a studio that may only have the rights in a certain region, for example. But on the more simpler level, if they can actually get the 4K release done, that is good news for all of us, no matter where you live. And a lot of this, I think, kind of started with Synapse taking the chance and doing Suspiria in 4K. I think that really sort of helped give some of the other companies sort of a reason to really try it out. And luckily, Suspiria, as far as I know, was actually a really good seller for them. And again, they did it properly. They took advantage of the format, and a film like Suspiria, especially with all the color that's in it, was one that could really shine in the format as well. And then you had, like Vinegar Syndrome jumping in, granted with maybe an oddball choice, but still a choice, with Tammy and the T-Rex. But now they also have Rad, which is their newer one, and they've already said that they have other ones in the works. And then obviously one of the more recent ones, which I've also done reviews on, is the Blue Underground releases. They obviously did Lucio Fulci's Zombie and William Lussig's Maniac as their first 2 4K releases, and those were very, very impressive. And now they're coming out with 2 more Fulci films, House by the Cemetery and New York Ripper, in 4K, and there are more titles coming. I believe one of them is The Final Countdown, and I know William Lussig's own Vigilante, which I'm very excited about, is one that will also be coming eventually. I'm sure I speak for a lot of you anyway. We're all very excited on Second Sight's Dawn of the Dead 4K release. Definitely one of my most anticipated titles in many, many years. But as of this recording, Arrow has announced their first 4K titles, and that is Pitch Black and Flash Gordon. And I think at this point, the only one of the major companies anyway that hasn't jumped in yet is obviously Scream Factory. I know Shout Factory has put out, I think, some IMAX movies in 4K or something, but no actual movies. Now I know their license agreements are pretty specific, so I don't know how quickly they're going to jump into the 4K realm, but they might. But the advantages of 4K obviously aren't just about resolution. Again, it really comes down to the bit depth. It comes down to how much color can be represented, and then yes, the extra resolution that you do get with it, but they all blend together. And what is really amazing to me is the fact that these smaller companies, that a lot of these smaller companies are really taking full advantage of the 4K. I mean, so far anyway, they're all jumping in and doing it properly. And the nice thing about all this too is that in that process, they're also creating these digital 4K master files that you can basically think of them as almost like digital negatives to a lot of these movies, which is key, because if you're creating basically a 4K digital negative, just for lack of a better term, you're creating a one-to-one with the film negative, which is something we've actually never had before. This is the thing. We actually now have something that technically is basically one-to-one with a 35mm negative in the digital realm. And once you have that raw digital negative, that's something where you can access that for years to come, and you have a good solid archive as well. Doesn't mean we still take care of the original film negative. I'm not saying that, but definitely have a proper backup, I guess is probably maybe the best way to put it. And for some of these films that have disintegrated over the years, or some of the ones that have been lost, in so many different ways, sadly, hopefully this helps make sure that on some level we always have a version available of films for many years to come. That means also a lot of the films that a lot of us love that aren't in a studio vault somewhere under protection can not only have the potential for an amazing release for new people to discover it, but also another way for them to archive these films for generations to come. And I know I say it a lot, but I just want to reiterate, we are now living in a time where we have Lucio Fulci Zombie on the highest video format that has ever existed. This makes me so happy. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. Definitely let me know your thoughts on the whole 4K thing and all the companies, smaller companies especially, kind of jumping into the game. So as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.